Well, the struggle was real. The fight was long and exhausting, but at the end of it all, this guy had a huge smile on his face because he managed to catch an absolutely gigantic catfish. And when he finally brought it to the surface, everyone who saw him fishing was amazed at what he got. He spent hours fighting with it, but in the end, it was all worth it because that was one massive fish. This fisherman's name is Dylan Alsworth from Leeds in the UK. One day he went fishing with his dad in a local stream, and he ended up catching a 70-pound catfish. He was so happy about his catch that he shared photos of it on Facebook, and it immediately went viral. Everyone wanted to know more about the fish and how he managed to catch such a big one. So Dylan decided to tell his story so that everyone could be as amazed as he was. Dylan usually goes fishing with his dad in the River Wharf in Boston Spa. It has become a fun little tradition for them, and they love spending time together doing something they both enjoy. However, one day was like any other until Dylan hooked onto something really big. He said that in all the years he and his dad have been fishing, they have never seen anything like this before. Dylan had actually only been fishing for 30 minutes when he felt a tug on his line. He thought he had hooked onto a big fish, but he wasn't expecting anything too crazy. But as soon as the fish started moving, he knew this was no ordinary fish. He fought to bring it closer to the shore, but it kept getting further away. He was about to lose hope when his dad helped him pull it out of the water. And just like that, their day turned into an all-out fishing adventure. When Dylan posted the photos on Facebook, everyone was wondering how he managed to catch such a big fish. Apparently, catching catfish isn't all that unusual, but catching one that weighs 70 pounds is extremely rare. When Dylan posted the photos, he added the caption, "Got myself a new personal best, and what a way to do it." People in the comments were quick to congratulate him, and others asked him questions about the fish itself. They were curious about everything, from how long the fight lasted to the exact spot where he caught the fish. According to Dylan, the fight lasted almost an hour. He said that it took him around 40 minutes to get the fish close enough to the bank. Once his dad helped him get it out of the water, it took them another 20 minutes to land it. If Dylan didn't have help, then he would have never been able to catch it. It was a team effort, and both men were exhausted by the end of it all. Some people in the comments thought that the fish looked fake, but Dylan quickly shut down those rumors. Catfish can look pretty scary sometimes, especially when they're big, ugly, and slimy. Well, Dylan was lucky because this catfish was all of those things, but it also had a really unique color. It was golden, which made it even more special for Dylan. He said that he had never seen a golden catfish before, let alone one that big. If you don't know much about fish, then you might not realize how rare this is. According to the World Record Academy, the heaviest golden catfish ever caught was 114 pounds. It was caught in 2017 in Alabama by a man named Brandon Palaniuk. Of course, Dylan's fish wasn't quite that heavy, but it was still pretty massive. Most golden catfish weigh between 20 and 40 pounds, so Dylan's catch was definitely above average. People started wondering if Dylan had to travel far to catch the fish. Remember, he lives in the UK, and most people assume that's where he did the fishing, but that's not true at all. Dylan actually lives in West Yorkshire, but he goes fishing in a stream near Boston Spa. It's not some exotic location that people have to travel to in order to catch similar fish. There are plenty of golden catfish in the UK, and all Dylan had to do was wait for one to bite. And now you're probably wondering why anyone would want to catch a fish that looks so scary. Well, catfish are actually delicious. They're a type of freshwater fish that is very popular in North America, and many people eat it regularly. In fact, there are many different ways to cook catfish, and it has a lot of health benefits. Of course, Dylan didn't keep the fish. He released it back into the wild after taking some photos. That's probably for the best, since keeping such a big fish would require a lot of work. Not to mention that releasing it meant that others could come along and try to catch it too. But before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe. We promise you'll always find something interesting here. Now back to the video. There's no doubt that Dylan is an experienced fisherman, but he admits that he had never fought with a fish that was that heavy. He knew that something big was on the other side of the line, but he had no idea it would be that challenging. But luckily, he was prepared. Dylan was using a 12-foot rod with 30-pound line, and that proved to be strong enough to hold up against the fish. Even though the weather that day wasn't great, Dylan still decided to go ahead and fish. It was windy, cold, and rainy, but that didn't bother him. In fact, he loves fishing in bad weather. Dylan says that most people don't want to go out in the rain or deal with strong winds, so he usually has the whole place to himself. Plus, some fish tend to be more active when the weather is bad, so Dylan decided to make the most of it. Little did he know that he was going to have an amazing story to tell later on. So remember that Dylan had only been fishing for half an hour before he hooked onto something big. At first, he thought it was just a log. You know how sometimes you think there's a fish on your line, when really, it's just something stuck there? Well, that's what he thought at first. But then the line started moving. As soon as he felt that, he knew he had something there. It was a really strong tug, but Dylan held on tight, and that's when the battle began. The problem with catfish is that they can breathe underwater and on land, unlike most other fish. This means that they can stay out of the water for a very long time without dying. The longest record for a catfish staying out of water was 96 hours. But Dylan didn't know any of this at the time. All he knew was that he had something big on his line, and he wanted to reel it in. At some point, Dylan thought he might have to give up. The fish was pulling him all over the place, and he couldn't get it close to the shore. He was losing hope when his dad came over and gave him a hand. Together they fought to get the fish out, but it seemed determined to stay hidden. It took them several attempts, but eventually they got it out of the water. One thing's for sure, it takes a lot of skill and patience to be a good fisherman. Dylan had both of those things, but he was still surprised by how big his catch was. He didn't expect it to be so heavy, but hey, that's the fun part of fishing, never knowing what's on the other side of the line. Now you've heard his incredible story, but what do you think? Would you ever go fishing? How would you feel if you caught a massive catfish? Let us know your thoughts and don't forget to share this with your friends. We hope you had fun watching and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care and bye for now.